we basically need to. We are recording. Maybe on episode 5 we go live and start doing them live, and like to YouTube and everything. All right, we're good. Hit that intro in 3, 2.
I didn't realize I was doing the intro.
Shannon, do you want to give it a try?
Well, I forget what we said the intro was supposed to be.
Doesn't matter. Drew, ready, go.
Hey there, welcome to the second Dauntless podcast episode. The second means that this is episode 2. I promise you it's going to be better than Star Wars episode 2. We can't get much worse anyways. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
All right.
Perfect.
Excellent.
All right, Shannon, you want to tell them what we're talking about in this podcast?
Yes, I do. So today we are going to be taking a look at something interesting that we found out in the interwebs on the world of fitness. So it's the American College of Sports Medicine's annual fitness trends survey. They publish it at the beginning of the year, so we're only slightly behind, but it is still relevant. Their 2022 results. They publish this in their health and fitness journal every year. So I believe from what I read, the survey takes place in 2021, and it's the results for going into 2022. So this is where we've been at since the beginning of the year. A couple of things before we get into our opinions and thoughts about the results of this survey. I thought I'd share some of the just history and the way that they approach this survey. So it's been conducted for the past 16 years, published, like I said, in the first issue of the year. The goal is to confirm previous trends, recognize emerging trends, and also in recent years, they're really seeing a lot of the effects of COVID-19 and those trends in the fitness world. So they don't want to be thinking about fads. They don't evaluate specific products, services, equipment, software, things like that. In the 2022 survey, they presented 43 possible trends, and the top 25 trends from previous years were included in that, as well as some new trends that were identified by editors of the ACSM Health and Fitness Journal.
What is the difference between a trend and a fad?
We should talk about that, because I was reading through,
so I asked the question.
I didn't really see anything in terms of their definition of that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that it's supposed to mean something that will stand the test of time. It's not just a passing.
Google says
thing.
that trend is the definition is a general direction in which something is developing or changing. Let me get fad.
Yeah.
While we're getting that, think of your most memorable fad from childhood. I'll start.
Intense and widely shared enthusiasm for something, especially one that, and then it kind of just trails off. So it sounds like a fad is like a very fast, almost like a viral moment, and a trend is more of like a we're going to start doing it like this now.
Favorite childhood fad, Pogs.
It's a good one.
Skip it. I freaking love that thing.
Oh, yeah, skip it.
Yo-yos when they started having ball bearings.
The Duncan yo-yo.
Yep. Most intense fad. Comment below your favorite fad that you had in high school that may or may not have been popular in your town.
We can do that?
Yeah, they can comment at the bottom of the YouTube video. Not right now, but after the show, you can comment, and then we can talk about it next show.
When we start going live, then we can get real-time comments in there.
Okay, real-time comments.
Big time, yeah.
We're not ready yet for that type of distraction, though.
No.
Technology.
No.
Okay.
We're already off topic on yo-yos.
All right. So the survey had around 4,500 responses. And I think something that's interesting, I was looking at just something to keep in the back of our minds as we talk about this. I was looking at some of the data. The respondents were mostly in their 20s and 30s and working in the health and fitness space. So this is the American College of Sports Medicine. They were canvassing people on their email lists that are going to their social media pages. So, it's not just going to be things flying in from the side. It's people in the space and from all around the world. They had a whole list of countries. It was really all over the place. So What we're going to do is we're going to walk the list from number 10 through number 1, and we're going to talk about them. And then I also have some interesting things I pulled out from the rest of the list, things that have dropped out of the top 10 over the years, things that seem to me like they should be in the top 10 personally. So we'll go through and talk about it. You guys want to say anything else before we jump into the 10?
No, let's do it.
Okay. So let's see if this works. All right. Number 10 is health and wellness coaching. This has been in the top 20 since its debut in 2010. And, it's really about integrating behavioral science and health promotion and lifestyle medicine programs. It's usually one-on-one, possibly small group coaching, to providing, goal setting, support, guidance, and encouraging improved health and wellness. So I have thoughts about this one.
Did you make these graphics?
I sure did.
Wow.
Look at that.
Good.
I'm a professional, Drew. You don't know this about me because in the gym I'm a
You need to watch this podcast. You can't be just listening in your car. You need to see this slideshow presentation. We've got gradients. We've got stock imagery of people looking concerned. We've got colorful pillows and a great.
I'm really concerned about his wellness.
He is too. He is too.
That's why he's being coached. Anyway, so it sounds like with health and wellness, because we're going to be going over a lot of different things, it sounds like this is leaning more towards alternative medicine. So people are not looking for a medication to quote unquote like fix their problem. They're looking to more lifestyle behaviors. So you have an issue with your health and you're trying to change behaviors to fix it, as opposed to seeking like a medical professional to give you drugs. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, what I read was a little bit more on like focusing. Well, it says in the study that it was focusing on clients' values, needs, vision, short and long-term goals, and behavior change intervention strategies. So
as opposed
maybe it is alternative medicine, but I don't think it's always. I would also consider like the nutrition coaching that I do with Jackie to be health and wellness coaching.
Yeah. And Jackie doesn't prescribe you any medications, right?
I think you see these a lot of times in like health insurance programs, right? So they'll, you get a certain amount of money for filling out some sort of a form, and you can identify if you have any behaviors that could be improved. And they'll set you up with, some sort of online coach or something that you can check in with and provide some accountability for. So yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement there on what that is.
It can probably be a lot of things, but I think what I was excited to see this in the top 10 because, I mean, I think if you want to be better at anything that you're not an expert at, hiring a coach is the way to go. And so to have overall health wellness coaching is really cool. All right, I'll get down off my soapbox, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I've had such great results with coaching being brought into my life because there's just so much misinformation, I think, out there in the health and fitness space, so much BS to weed through. So it's nice to see coaching right here in the top 10.
Right. Well, what I'm more leaning towards and what I'm trying to get at is that the reason this would be trending and the reason people are looking to this because they are potentially looking for other means of solving problems as opposed to going to their PCP and saying, hey, I have this. And it's just like, okay, well, maybe you don't need cholesterol medication. Maybe you could change your diet. So instead of going through the typical, it's just people are now searching, or at this time in the top 10, searching for more of like maybe I just need a health coach instead of going down the prescription thing.
That's true. Well, because interestingly enough, only 2 spots down, we don't have a slide for it, but in the number 12 spot is exercise is medicine, which is a global health initiative encouraging primary care physicians to actually prescribe physical activity as a treatment recommendation. So I think you're right.
So I'm just saying that's why that would be trending. More people are starting to search for ways and potentially better or worse ways of like, I don't want to say worse, but just alternative means to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Number 9, online, live, and on-demand exercise classes. So this was introduced in the annual survey in 2019. And when it debuted, it was at the number 3 spot. It then dropped to number 26 in 2020. Now, remember, the study was done, the survey in 2019 for the 2020 results. So it dropped tremendously in 2020, came back up to the number 1 spot in 2021. Not surprising, given on-demand exercise classes was probably how most people were accessing fitness and exercise classes in 2020 for the 2021 results. But I think it's interesting that it's dropped again. This one's kind of yo-yoed, to tie it back to your first comment.
Right. So I think for this reason, obviously COVID-19, everybody goes in their house and they give that moment of like, oh shit, if I can't go outside and I need to exercise, my TV is going to be the next best thing. If you look at companies like Peloton, they had a huge spike in business. They actually started in 2012 and they were trying to push this online service. And there's been like online classes for a while, but then obviously it hit a huge spike of like, well, this is the best option. And then once things started opening back up, you see it fall down onto the trend and then comes back up. So, and with them reinventing, right? They started to see the decline. And by they, I just mean Peloton and people like it, like Nordic Track, and it has all that stuff. We even went online for a little bit over Zoom. That weren't those terrible. And it kind of like, people are sitting at their house and this is trending of like what they're searching, what they're doing. So how do I work out on demand? Apple recently did like Apple Fitness, and they have like yoga, strength training, cycling, all that stuff. So all these big companies started answering that. Here, do search for us, and then the marketing follows that, and then more people see that it's available, and then they search it more, and then they start doing it more as opposed to going outside and exercising.
But it's also started. Sorry, it's also been tapped out a little bit too, because like Peloton, I think relatively recently just had to lay off 150 employees or something like that.
Yeah,
for a certain amount of time, they had this huge demand, and you couldn't get a Peloton bike for a couple of months, and now you can find them for really good prices, and
you can even rent them now.
Yeah, so that market has in 1 year has completely changed. So like thinking of next year, it's number 9 right now. Okay, next year, what's it going to be?
And why did that happen, Drew?
Pandemic's over. Didn't you hear?
Oh boy.
But why did people quit on their Peloton?
Why did they quit on their Peloton? I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. You're asking the person that is not going to quit on, doing the online stuff when you need to. I mean, it's online stuff is really helpful for like a day like today, when I had a planned bike ride and it rained all day and there was supposed to be a couple of windows for me to ride outside. I mean, I think just that intrinsic motivation for people to get on their machine, when it's raining out or during the middle of winter can be challenging. So,
well, and I think for a portion of the population at the time that Peloton took off, it was one of the only options, right? To have something that other people were using that was, high quality videos. People really, connected with the coaches or whatever, leaders. I don't even know what they call them. But now you're probably just left with the people who were into Peloton before it blew up, before the pandemic. That was a temporary buzz. Also, I think there's something with the manufacturing that they probably had to lay people off because they built this huge, I don't know where I heard this, huge manufacturing plant, but Pelotons are already in the homes of the people who are going to invest in a Peloton bike. So they just have bikes sitting there. But it might have been my parents talking to me about that. Have either of you done like on-demand exercise classes recently, like in the last couple of years?
I've tried some out just so we could improve our product, but I haven't sent anything consistently other than maybe like ROM WOD.
When you
Okay.
say on-demand exercise class, like something someone else is leading and telling me what to do, and
Yeah. So not necessarily just, it's an exercise class. Yeah. So whether that's pre-recorded or live, online live or on demand is actually what this number 9 is.
I don't know how you would classify. So I do a lot of my training and a lot of my harder efforts on this virtual cycling app, Zwift. But it's not an on-demand thing. Is that what would you
that is
consider
number
that?
16, mobile exercise apps, which I'm pretty
Mobile
sure
exercise.
that is actually listed as a thing. Yeah. So this would be during the pandemic, I was a member of Beachbody On Demand, and I actually did really enjoy it, I will say, because they had a lot of dance classes, and that I liked the variety that you could get at any one moment. Like with that particular option, there was yoga and Pilates and P90X and
But isn't that
my favorite.
an on-demand exercise class?
Yes,
So
that would be number 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it's good, but it's hard to replicate the energy of a classroom without being in the classroom. I think that's the biggest thing. You can feel the vibes all you want, but even those Peloton classes, you can't have that same energy as being in a room next to people sweating their brains out, everyone moving at the same pace.
And I think something to keep in mind when we go down through this list is I think this is one of the first times in history where the environment or the culture kind of started leading the
Mm,
the manufacturing, whereas before the trends were all, or what seemed like they were all driven by either celebrities or the manufacturing. So it was kind of like the fitness industry itself was saying like, this is the new thing, this is the new thing. And then the pandemic happened, and that was the first time that was like, "Oh, this is the only thing," and then they ramped it up and
yeah,
was like, "Okay, this is the thing to do while you're stuck at home."
yeah,
Instead of, whereas
yeah.
before, the reason Peloton, kicked off in 2012, and it was like, "Oh, yeah, you can do that, but, like, why would I do that when I could just go bike with my friends, or I
Mhm.
could just do it at a gym and I don't have to have a bike in my house?" That, like, business model just really didn't work or wasn't super popular, but then when that's the only option, it becomes the best, and that's why it rose so aggressively and then fell so hard.
Okay,
So,
so
as
when
we go
there's
down,
when there's another virus, we're gonna blame it on Peloton. That's what you're telling me.
not
No.
I
I
think
might.
Coca-Cola is more to blame than
That's
Peloton.
fair. Okay. Right. Number 8, which I think is interesting as a trend,
These
but
pictures, Shannon, killing it.
and all copyright cleared.
Oh, good. That was my next question. Are these, royalty free?
Yeah, yeah. Bodyweight training. So, as we probably can tell, bodyweight training uses minimal equipment, which makes it an inexpensive way to exercise effectively. This was actually number 3 last year, which also isn't surprising given
Right.
you worked with what you had.
Yes.
But it's dropped, number 8. That's a pretty big drop for 2021, given the survey was taken at the end of 2021. It was taken at the end of 2021 for 2022 results. So it's interesting. It's funny to me that this is even a trend. Like, isn't this like just fitness at its core?
So I have like I'm not going to try to belittle this this survey, but I have kind of a general thought that I think would be more important to share at the end.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think we have to like dissect all of these different things, because I think you're right. I think, like, the on-demand exercise class in number 9, the body weight training, not very surprising that they were higher last year and then lower this year, because they're both ways to access stuff at home.
Yeah.
Right. So given our history here in the last couple of years, that makes a lot of sense. But I agree with you. Like, why I think that their operational definition of trend is interesting. And I had this thought when I was reading this earlier, and it's going to sound really cheesy probably in the end, but I'll share it at the end. I'll share it at the end.
Wow. Okay. Stay tuned, folks.
On the hook. I'll be here. I'll be here for it. Drew.
Okay. I actually had a couple of takeaways too. So, I mean, I don't think we have to go crazy on this one.
Right. Yeah. It's all, I feel like 9 and 8 are very, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So number 7 is high intensity interval training. This one came in hot, number 1 in the survey for 2014 and again in 2018. So going back to your point, Elliott, I think you're right in that there are certain fitness findings or things that emerge from like fitness experts that kind of probably become the hot spot at the time and then, settle out into the masses.
Yeah, I mean they take some time to really get involved, but if you think about like so CrossFit was started in 2000, P90X was 2002, the Total Gym and Bikram Yoga was like 2003, 2006, and then the CrossFit Games was in 2007. CrossFit hit its peak in 2018, and the common thing when they said and that's when it was like on ESPN and it saw the biggest growth was they would be like, oh, CrossFit, it's like high intensity interval training. So those were kind of used interchangeably to the novice person. If like you were to just ask somebody, oh, that's like HIIT, right? Just intervals. And so that was, I think, one of those leading trends where they were like, hey, this is the way to do it. This is the most efficient use for your time. And then it started, getting into the mix of like, okay, well, high intensity interval training is great, but I don't have a place to do it.
Yeah. It's dropped out of the top 5 for the first time ever this year. And I think when you see some of the ones at the top, it's kind of obvious why. It's just
what did you say after CrossFit or after P90X total body or total gym?
Total Gym, the Chuck Norris.
That's what I thought. That's the Chuck Norris. You lay on a thing and you've got
it's just
like your incline, flies and stuff like that. Basically, interesting.
I've never even heard of that.
Never. I'm a big infomercial fan. Chuck Norris.
Gotcha. Well, I am too. That's what got me on Insanity, which I bought bootlegged originally before becoming a on-demand customer of Beachbody. And the bootlegged version, I ordered it and it only had the first 30 days, and then all of the other ones were just repeats of the originals. So I only ever did the first 30 days. That's what you get for bootlegging. All right. Okay. So the next one is personal training, fitness testing and goal setting with a trainer, working one-on-one. So since the survey was first published, personal training has been a top 10 trend. I think that there should be a little asterisk next to that because of the of people taking the American College of Sports Medicine. I would guess that many of them are personal trainers or have personal training. So
are you trying to say the survey may be biased?
I think it may be biased. Yes, wow. I think it may be biased. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely biased.
I would like to see 2 spins of this survey. That's fitness trends among average people, and then also the most effective fitness trends, top most effective fitness trends.
Well, they need. I mean, if you're gonna really do this, you've got to do, some sort of blind survey, right? Where you're actually polling from a random sample out of any given population. This is, I mean, we're
preaching to the choir.
We're taking all these people in their 20s and their 30s that attend the best facility ever, or whatever this the American College of Sports Medicine. I'll go to the American College of Sports Medicine. What's your number one trend? Well, we like to do fitness. Oh, no kidding. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I got a little worked up there.
That's okay. I mean, since it was first published, personal training in the top 10, I'm not surprised. I guess
I've done personal training.
I mean, that's standard in all industries, right? Like I know we're talking about fitness, but usually anybody that's going to start. So if you're in the category of wanting to do something that you don't know how to do, we lost Drew.
Did we lose Drew?
He's
He's
muted.
muted. Oh,
Okay. All right.
there he
So
is.
when you're in the category of doing something that you don't know how to do yet, you hire a professional
Yeah.
and you do it. So personal training should always be in that group of that. Like if we were talking about piano lessons, hiring a one-on-one pianist to help you or a piano teacher should be in the top 10, right?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I meant with the health and wellness coaching too. That there's just so much noise to just work one-on-one with somebody makes all the difference, I think. But
I would
Drew,
actually
what was your experience with personal training? Let's hear about that.
Oh, well, Elliott was my personal trainer.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, what do you want to know? I mean, I utilized Elliott for a time to just kind of work on some specific strength areas.
Yeah, so
and kind of get ready. We specifically targeted like trying to get stronger for bike riding stuff and more explosive in terms of my ability to output explosive power at important moments during races and stuff like that. So, we work on that. I have so many things I've got to work on. It's ridiculous. So we just picked a couple of things to work on, and we did that, and I got better. And personal training is great. It's very straightforward. And Elliott posts about this all the time, right? If you put in the work and you show up consistently, then you're gonna reap all of these benefits and rewards. And personal training is just a better way to target your individual goals, right? But it's exactly like Elliott says. Like if you want to get better at the piano, you're going to hire someone to specifically work with you to get better at the piano. It's just getting more specific with what you want to become better at.
Yeah. Well, and knowing what I think for me, anytime I've done like a goal setting session with Elliott or a one-on-one session with Meg, it's also just knowing what you need to do and getting that from a trainer as opposed to having to research it yourself, because you may know you want to get faster, Drew, right? But if you have to then do the research to, okay, well, should I do mostly intervals? Should I mix in going faster, longer, slower stuff? Like, how do I actually get faster other than just going out there and trying harder? And my husband calls it at his gym. He goes to a big box gym and kids close your ears, but he calls it fuck around-itis. It's just people that go to the gym and don't really do anything. You just see them kind of walking around, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's no real system to it. So I can see why that would be effective for specific goals, Drew. That makes sense.
Yes, and I think as a personal trainer myself, most often people come in with they say things that they think that they want, but then the real value is hiring a trainer and saying, well, these are actually more valuable than what you want. If this is what you want, we can absolutely do that, but I would recommend that you focus on these things, and then we usually go towards that, and they get all of the benefits, as opposed like typically people are like, oh, I just want to look a little leaner and tone and lengthen. And you're like, okay, well, do this, or I just want to run faster. And you're like, okay, well, let's fix your technique. And they're like, no, I just want to run faster. And you're like, okay, but so things like that, hiring a professional can also just help narrow down what you actually want instead of just like watching TV and being like, how do I get a butt like that? I want that butt. It's like, well, you don't have the genetics for that butt. You can get the best butt that you can have, but not that butt, Okay.
Anyway. Don't don't go getting a BBL for that butt. Okay. Well, personal training. Anything else on personal training? Any other thoughts, feelings? Okay. Number 5, always been on the list. I'm betting always will be on the list. Exercise for weight loss. Exercise as part of weight loss programs. It's always been at least in the top 20. And interestingly, though, this year it's top 5, which I would probably chalk up to another downstream effect of the pandemic. I mean, a lot of people I know are bigger than they were 2 years ago. So
Chalk it up to the I guess I would chalk that one up to the pandemic movement there.
Yeah, but I think
I mean,
unfortunately this is one of those like where the exercise industry, the fitness industry, and when I say fitness industry, I'm saying like Peloton and all these people trying to sell their fitness thing, tries to push exercise as their answer to their weight loss, your weight loss solution, when it really should always be exercise and nutrition. Like it's not nutrition and it's not exercise, it's exercise and nutrition. You can't just do this very special perfect program and lose all and solve all your weight loss problems. There is a nutrition component, and not saying that you can't lose weight if you just maintain the diet and then you start working more. Yeah, you are just burning more calories. But like if you want like permanent solutions and like really healthy fixes and not just I lost, 10 pounds in 10 weeks. And then it's like, okay, well, let's check in
mhm.
10 weeks later. These are not sustainable changes.
Can
So
I
like,
ask you? Can I ask you a question though about this? Because I don't. Obviously, I don't. I'm not going to disagree with you on what you're saying here. But do you find it surprising that exercise for weight loss is so high, given that we kind of have already agreed upon and identified that there's a bias in this survey that most of the respondents are coming from this small select group of people that are already kind of aware of fitness in general. Do you know what I mean? Like I would anticipate like exercise for weight loss being in the top 5 for the general population, but given that it's from the specific population, do you find that surprising at all?
I to get a little conspiracy theory on you, I think that most of the science that has been done on exercise for weight loss has been from like big sugar companies. So like Gatorade, Coca-Cola they fund a lot of the colleges, and a lot of the colleges take that money and do research studies on exercise. So at no point would they want to be like, wait, no amount of sugar is healthy, like refined carbohydrates and sugar are
Yeah.
beneficial to weight loss and a healthy lifestyle. They would never want to publish that. So they're like, no, 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 don't log what you're eating or drinking. Maybe other than you drank Gatorade and did this thing, and that's how replenished your electrolytes. And but then you did this HIIT system. So they're like kind of like ignoring this and just being like, no, 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 we went on this exercise program. We didn't log food because that's too hard to track. And then they did that.
Yeah, as you say that, Elliot, it's interesting that there's really not anything particular to food on the top 20, even any of the other ones down the list that I read. I mean, I didn't read all 42. I don't have them memorized, but like I think you're right. Like it's surprising to me to not see things like, low sugar challenges or I happen to be in a community and follow a lot of people who are like sober curious. So like to see that there's not really anything like that. It's all very, I mean, I guess it is the American College of Sports Medicine, but it's all very exercise related, not much nutrition related at all.
I would agree with you. I'm surprised that there's nothing on here about non-alcoholic beer.
Right?
Because I'm saying this because I was on vacation this weekend with my family, and I was sitting on a little lakeside beach, very very nice, very pristine, drinking a non-alcoholic beer, and I looked over, and there was this couple with a kid walking around. They were in phenomenal shape, right? Like think of Adonis, and it's better than Adonis, right? And anyways, so they were both drinking non-alcoholic beer from the same company. And I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, so I'm just surprised as well that there's nothing on here about nutrition.
I mean, there's no denying that it's more prevalent. Go ahead, Elliot.
A study just came out. Think how crazy this is and like what we know in the world that we're in. A study just came out that said no amount of alcohol is healthy. And it's like, we just now are ready to publish that. Like, who was lying to themselves? And you hear it all the time. Oh, well, I have a glass of red wine every night to keep my blood pressure in check. It's like, have you tried walking and not, it's like, I don't mean to, like, but
Does water also help keep your blood pressure in check?
also just being hydrated and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, like they just see one article or something like, oh, alcohol can lower your blood pressure so it can remain healthy levels. It's like, okay, well, yeah, because it thins your blood, and so yeah, it can get through your clogged arteries easier.
Yeah,
Like,
or you have
how
those
about you
like there's
how about you
there,
fix the arteries?
yeah, or there's like, I think it's like the blue zones diet or something like that, where they oh god, Drew, where they it's like people in the Mediterranean basically that have lived until 100 years old or more, and they like go through and find all of their most common habits. And one of them is they have a glass of red wine or up to 5 per week or however many it is, and it's like, oh, everybody's got to have red wine. But
That's
they
all they
don't
take, yeah.
also talk about the fact that they're like literally eating no processed food,
And they
no
probably
refined
walk across
carbohydrates.
town to have that glass of wine and then
Yeah.
walk back in the very manual labor, and they carry their groceries across town,
Up the
and they're
hill.
moving,
Yeah.
and they've been
Uh-huh.
tiling floors, and they've been doing like, and you're just like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I
But
had
the
the
red
baby
wine,
wine." But
though.
it was the red wine and the little bit of bread and olive oil.
Yeah. So the Boone's Farm you're buying down at Hannaford is going to be great.
Not it was just
We should move to number 4. We should move to number 4.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we've gotten on a tangent here. Okay, number 4. If it would go, hold
Strength
please.
training with free weights.
Strength training with free weights. It debuted at number 4 in 2020 and has dropped to number 8 in 2021. It's now back up to number 4 in 2022. So this is incorporating barbells and other functional class or activities into your day, which is interesting. This one's interesting because this is number 4, while functional fitness is number 14. So,
but this is the thing. This is going to get me to my final point. Like,
go
I
ahead,
don't think
Drew.
this is interesting at all.
All right.
Hold on. I think it is interesting in a way because the trending, just because it's trending, I'm assuming that they're just looking for like search results in Google AdWords and like buzzwords. So in this time, they started searching for it. Everybody found functional weight. Like, I am no longer searching for CrossFit gyms. I'm no longer searching for, like, all the people at the gym aren't Googling the benefits of strength training anymore. So all the people that go to Dauntless Academy are no longer looking at, because they see the benefits and they're gaining them. And they're like, so they're not out there looking. I'm looking at this survey in terms of an online trend, not a like a census survey. I don't think they just right? Isn't that what they did? They looked at internet trends, not just individual people.
No, they had the top 25 trends that were there in previous years. And then they canvassed their community of like professors and other professionals at the American.
I don't think it was a canvas. This was it says here, as were some, let's see, the top 25 trends from previous years were included in the survey, as were some potentially emerging trends identified by the editors of ACSM's Health and Fitness Journal.
Okay,
now that could mean a lot. That could mean a lot of different things. That could mean if I'm an editor, I'm going online and I'm typing something in, like Elliott's saying, and like, oh, let's include this. Like, so there's no in terms of like, any sort of consequential mathematical standard here in terms of how we're selecting our components. There's nothing here for me that's like, oh, this is a great survey. But
weren't you the one who said this was super interesting and you wanted to talk about it?
Oh, it is, and I do.
The end, I think.
We're still waiting for our nugget at the end here from Drew. Is that what we're waiting for?
There are a few nuggets being held out, but I think the overall consensus that we're starting together is that, like, are they actually falling off of trends, or are people no longer searching for them, or is the American College of Sports Medicine no longer just like, oh, that's old, like, oh, we hear about it so much it doesn't sound new, it's not a buzzword anymore. But when everyone was hearing about Orange Theory or Whoop or these new Garmin trackers, they're like, wow, that's trending. But now everybody has a Whoop on their wrist. So now it's kind of commonplace. So it doesn't feel like a trend anymore. It's just a thing.
It just is what it is.
It's just a
Well,
thing.
I mean, I thought strength training with free weights was kind of interesting, and I mean, anecdotally, I feel like it's growing in trendiness or popularity, if you will, similar to like NA beers, like we were just talking about, because people I know who have just never been interested in a barbell, maybe it's because I post about it more often and now I'm getting more questions, and it's just, the law of attraction, but I'm getting a lot more inquiries and people thinking that it's cool. So
I'll tell you this, and as the eldest statesman of this group, I'm hearing more and more from people within, just kind of my own outside of the gym community. They're coming back to me and saying, "Oh man, I had this, personal training, not training, but personal physical training. What does PT stand for?
Physical therapy.
Physical therapy. Sorry, I lost my mind for a minute there. Physical therapy. I had this physical therapy appointment because I've got this, I've got this problem, and the therapist is telling me the best way to solve that problem is strength training. And it's like, well, yeah, that would help with that. So it's like, when you hit your 40s, that's the message. So yep. I'm not sure so sure it's a trend, but it's like this is almost a necessity. If you want to kind of make your way gracefully into your 40s and 50s, like you've got to incorporate some of this stuff into your weekly and daily routines.
And as the person with the most experience talking to people that want to fix their life in this group, we also have the largest cohort of people right now, the baby boomers, aging gracefully, but also starting to be told from their doctors, hey, you're getting a little bit of osteoporosis, you're getting a little osteopenia. Then the slightly younger generation than them, the kind of in the middle between the baby boomers and the millennials, are kind of looking at what's happening to them and being like, oh, how do I stop that? So we have a huge pie slice of people looking and saying, how do I prevent that? And the, science article after article is saying, weight training will prevent that. And you'll do a slow decline. Like if you look at the charts on specifically women's bodies on bone density after 30, it's just almost a free fall. But if you weight train, like training with weights and lifting weights and stuff, or even just like high impact things like running, you like glide down. And it's a fall. It's a fall for everyone. But if you don't exercise, it is a free fall to spongy bones. So
well,
that could be why it's trending. Anytime something happens like a pandemic or something's happening, people start looking at, well, oh, how do I not do that?
Yeah.
And then
well, since Drew is the oldest and Elliott is the most experienced with people complaining about their health, I, as the female, should bring into this equation. I think that there could also be another driver behind this being the change in beauty norms, expectations, beauty standards. Yeah, because I no longer is like, the runway model look, gaunt, very long, lean. I don't think that that's what people are going for anymore. I think strong is sexy.
Right. Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, I think that's what people are going for nowadays. So you also hear that any person that you look at online that is carved out and is today's beauty standard is going to tell you, I lift weights. Like they have to be. So. All right.
Number 3 and number 2, I feel like we can kind of just,
there's no surprise here. Outdoor activities, people going outside, it's staying in the top. Number 2 is home exercise gyms. This one actually just debuted this year, which is, I guess, kind of interesting, but not really. The American College of Sports Medicine expects that home gym alternatives will, continue to be present.
I think they're going to fall off.
I will say, I will go back. I do want to just touch upon number 3, or at least for a second, and say I'm hopeful that this trend continues to stay near the top. just given the fact, like from what we've seen in the bike industry with developments in electronic bikes, and during 2000 and 2001, we were basically told you cannot buy a bike at all, and it's going to take 6 months to get a new one. And people are buying e-bikes. It's just getting more and more people outside and active, getting access to those outdoor spaces. I think that would be great. Even though, again, when I say I hope to see this trend in the top, we've identified that I don't like this survey and how it's been conducted.
What do you think about electronic bikes? Like, you mean that as a good thing that more people are using electronic bikes?
Yeah, I'd rather. I mean, if it's a way that you're going to get people out of cars and either commuting to work, or like if you think about like what we were just talking about of trying to continue to do things longer in your lifetime. When I'm 75 years old, I'm not going to be able to go ride 150 miles comfortably on the current road machine that I've got now. But I could do that, or do something comparable to that with an e-bike. Still enjoy the parts of cycling and getting outside that I want to, still getting some exercise, but having similar access to what I've got now as a 38-year-old.
Okay. I was just curious. My best friend has been dragged into the mountain biking world by her longtime boyfriend in the pandemic, and he got her an electric bike. So when they go together, she motors up the mountain, and then they both go down together. So that way she can keep up with him. But cool. Yeah, I agree with you, Drew. I mean, it definitely is. I think it's nice that more people are getting outdoors, enjoying the outdoors. That's definitely one of the benefits outside of the pandemic, is enjoying that. As someone who hails from the White Mountains, where the pandemic summers brought a lot of outdoor emergencies, I think that it just comes with the caveat of people learning how to conduct themselves outdoors properly. That's the only downside, is that you have people out there who have not grown up camping, who have never carried out, that type of stuff. So
I could tell you a whole story about climbing Mount Washington, but I won't do it today.
Okay. I do want to hear it. All right.
No one ever listens to me. That's all I'm going to say. No one ever listens to me.
Well, we listen to you, Drew. Here at the Dauntless Academy podcast, Drew is one of three main voices.
Well, we want to know what number one is more.
Yes.
Yeah, we do want to get to number one. Number one is wearable technology, including fitness or activity trackers, smartwatches, heart rate monitors, GPS tracking devices. What's interesting here, well, just facts from the survey anyway. This has hovered in the number one or number two spot since 2016. So it sounds like Drew and Elliott have some comments here. So let's hear it, boys.
Oh, I'm out of the wearable technology.
You done?
I'm over it.
I think this is definitely a marketing driven initiative in terms of this is them saying you need this, not we want this. So I think a lot of these are doing really good marketing and saying like, this is so important. Like, look, you can track your blood oxygen level. You can track your resting heart rate all day long. And it's like, that is good data if you use it, if you're like really trying to maximize performance. But knowing if you have a 48 resting heart rate or a 55, it's like
the average person doesn't really need to know that.
Yeah. And so I've used them. I still use it with like my Apple Watch and stuff because it comes on. But in terms of I mean, I think if you don't track it, it doesn't change. Is that your dog drinking water?
That is my dog drinking water. Yeah.
Are you logging that water? Is your bowl? Do you have a water tracking bowl?
I gotta put that in my FitnessPal.
Yeah. For the dog. 6 licks of water. I just think that like people have been. This is just regular people trying to use tools for tip of the spear, and like of what, Olympic athletes have been doing. And it's cool to be able to like access this information. And, GPS is wonderful for just tracking mile times and stuff like that. But, I think a lot of people are really focusing on these so much that, and I think this is the worst part. I'll just go get straight to it. The worst part of these, especially with the Whoop, is that it tells you if you're tired or not. And I think there's no worse place to be than just living off of what your devices are telling you.
Yeah.
So it should be the reverse of that. It should be, oh, let me just double check and kind of see where I'm at with this. Okay, these trends over a long time, this does make sense. And it is nice that you can journal and be like, oh, when I stretch before bed, it is giving me a better recovery score. My heart rate is trending down over the last 6 months. But like I've woken up and you wake up and I'm like, I feel really good. And I pull up my phone and it's like 16% recovered. You're in the red. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm tired today. I guess I should take it easy. And it's like, maybe, or maybe your thing was a little bit off your wrist and it just measured something incorrectly.
Yeah.
So you can't like live and die by the algorithm, because that's all it is just people saying, well, typically this means this, but everyone individually is so different. Like BMI works really good for huge populations and are really inaccurate for individual people.
Yeah, I mean, I was using the same device, the Whoop device, for a while, and I'll say, I think it's nice if you're somebody who just needs that little extra push or is starting to be interested in understanding yourself and your body a little bit more, and if you're willing to do the rigorous journaling and actually keep up with that. I never really ran into the like, oh, I'm less than 20%. And today I was planning to go to the gym, but now I'm not going to. I would go, and I always still played it by feel of my body first and foremost. But what it came down to was the business models of these fitness trackers is also changing. Like the whole subscription model, I think is maybe even, it could end up playing against them, because I have to be able to justify $30 a month every single month that I am using this to its worthy degree. And after a while, I couldn't, because I do use my body and listening to my body first and foremost. So
That's just Whoop though. Like my Apple Watch is, once you buy it, it's just a one time. And a lot of these are one time. Like these Garmin watches, some of them have you just
some
buy
of them
the watch,
are, but
and
that, I
then
mean,
there's like pay things. But yeah,
when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's smart for them. Like they're going to get more than $150 from me if I'm doing this for more than 5 months. But, I at the end that played against them, because I was like, I can't justify this anymore. So Drew, you're done with wearable technology?
Yeah. Well, you guys, gosh, you stole all my thunder on all the things I was going to say about why I got rid of my Whoop. No, there's nothing different. I do think, to Elliott's point, that the companies like Whoop have done a really good job utilizing, certain popular athletic personalities and celebrity to promote the idea of like, oh, this is gonna really help you. It's like, and I think it can really help you, but it's gonna help the top tier athlete. For someone like myself, I don't need a thing I'm wearing around my wrist to tell me that I got a bad night's sleep. Like it's like I'm paying you $30 a month to tell me that I got a bad night's sleep, and that, I'm a little bit tired today. And I think it's, the more important piece fitness wise for a mediocre type of individual, athletic performer like myself, is consistency with training. And if you're letting if you're letting your watch influence whether or not you go to the gym or whether or not you get some physical activity that day, I think that's counterproductive to what you're trying to achieve long term.
Yeah, the stopwatch is the original gangster of fitness tracking. Why don't you just run a mile? Can you go faster? How about 100 pounds on a barbell? Can you do 200 pounds? Like those are really what you should be focusing on. And again, not focusing on it so hard that it ruins your consistency. Like don't stop running because you're getting slower, or don't go to the gym, things like that. I really only have one more rant during this whole article.
Well, and what weren't you telling me, Elliot? Was it you who was telling me like the whole ring thing with the I don't have the I watch whatever. But like, you finish your rings and it's like people who start tracking their steps or doing those rings end up um having fewer steps in a day than people who don't, or doing less physical activity than people who don't. I don't remember where I heard this, but because if you're somebody who's on that cusp where like you might go for a walk, you might not, but you're not going to hit your ring for the day either way. You'll go, screw it, doesn't don't
I
even
can
bother.
No,
Was
no,
it
I
you
think
who's telling me this?
no, I said it slightly in the reverse. It can be positive and negative. So I was saying the example of it was noon and I had completed all my rings. And so I said, so I guess I get to stop
Fun.
moving now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, one great hour doesn't replace then, oh, well, I sit for the next 11 hours of my day because I
Right.
completed my physical activity. Like it would be way better to just have like multiple 20-minute bouts of physical exercise. I mean, obviously 1 hour and then that's your job and that's what you have to do is going to be better than not doing it at all. But like your body needs to be moving all day, multiple times a day,
Yeah.
not like physically lifting things, but just walking around your house, standing up, moving around. You have a lot of like passive systems that just need muscle contraction to clear
Yeah.
toxins.
Well, and I've been one of the people that is on the flip side where I like had a Fitbit years ago and I would do challenges with my coworkers or whatever. And you'd have that one coworker who is already 20,000 steps ahead of you by 10 a.m. And you're like, why even bother? I'm
Right.
going to stick with my 2,000 for the day. You know what I mean? Like it just can be counterintuitive. Yeah.
All right, can I
Okay.
go on a rant?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Do you want to go on your rant? Is it still about wearable technology? I had a couple
No,
other.
it was about kids. Now that I'm a dad, I get to rant about kids and
Okay.
parenting.
So I thought this was kind of interesting, but I'll just say that so number 18 on the list was licensure of fitness professionals, which is basically kind of stayed around that same place since it was originally in the survey. But employing certified fitness professionals was a little bit higher at number 13. I just thought this was interesting coming out of the American College of Sports Medicine. I would think that this would be higher. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on these? If the answer is no, we can just continue.
No, I think
This
this.
was go ahead, Drew.
No, you go ahead. You're more.
This was a big
You're more
legal
depth.
battle with CrossFit, and there were a couple companies trying to make their fitness licensure the thing to do and making it like mandatory to be licensed to fitness, which face value sounds like a great idea. But
Mm,
unfortunately, a lot of these colleges and a lot of these licensure fitness things are influenced by studies done by Coca-Cola, Big Sugar type
mm-hmm,
places.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, you can't do CrossFit or you can't coach these things. It becomes very like physical therapy, where in like a physical therapy practice,
Oh, I see, I see.
you have protocols, and if you go off of protocols, you can be sued. And there's like certain things that you can do and certain things that you can't do. And a lot of the things that they do are great and they work really well, but they can't be like, in your specific circumstance, let's try this. And then, it works. But at our gym, we can practice and we can kind of go
Try.
off stuff and try like fringe things when you're feeling desperate or whatever. We obviously stick to the basics and the things that we know and that are certain. But when anytime we venture off into like fringe things, we're like, hey, we're not sure if this will work. Are you willing to try stuff like that? So it's always a conversation. But that whole thing was like they wanted to be you have to be licensed in your state to own a gym or to run a fitness or to be a coach. Because right
Oh,
now anyone
think
could just go on their Instagram and say, hey, I'm a health coach.
yeah. Well, I was going to say, think about how hard that would be to enforce with how many people that are making billions and millions of dollars on Instagram selling booty bands.
Right.
Is so
So
interesting.
I think it's just as positive as it is negative. Unfortunately, you can be like, hey, I'm a health professional and a CrossFit coach, or you can't say CrossFit because technically CrossFit will sue you, but like I'm a functional fitness coach and a
Mm.
health mentor. And you could have like literally no thing, be like, oh, I went on a keto diet for a week once, so I can help you. and you're like,
Did you say booty bands?
Booty bands.
That's episode 6. We go over the booty band review.
Yeah.
Can't wait to try it.
Drew's going to be our guinea pig. He's going to test the top fit booty bands.
Oh, I like that.
All right. So notable shifts out of the top spots. So worksite health promotion and workplace well-being has dropped out of the top 20 from 2020 and has remained out of the top 20, which yes, is not surprising based on the world, and we're all working from home and all that. But I mean, just as somebody who's started working from home and works at a company that is just constantly busy, constantly coming at you, it's kind of unfortunate to me that this has dropped out of the top 20. And I think that work-life balance has taken a shift. It might seem like for the better because we're working from home and have more flexibility, but it's so pushed into our life that it's really unfortunate that there's not more worksite health promotion and workplace well-being programs like as a top thing.
You wouldn't believe this, but I have a perspective on it. Worksite
Wow.
health promotion, so a lot of these big companies would have gyms and be like, look, we care about your health. Now they're eliminating the gyms, and like you said, they want an unhealthy work. Like they want to get as much as they can and be quote unquote as productive as possible. So they're kind of offloading that duty onto the insurance companies, meaning I've noticed that a lot more people now, whereas before we would have like maybe one member to be like, my very rare health insurance gives me $100 a month. Now health insurance, and if you haven't, check, because they've been updating them a lot. And a lot of them way deep down will be like, hey, we will reimburse you $200. So the workplace is kind of saying, we're not going to try to get you to work out we're not requiring spaces or having gyms for you to take time out of your day to go work out during your lunch break and come back tired and sweaty. Do that out of work, but we'll help you and pay somebody else. Like we'd rather just make the insurance companies. So that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll just say this blanket statement. My company is great. No, well, we have a lot of those programs. We do, they try to do the step challenges, same kind of thing. We did this whole like walk across the world thing. I get reimbursement if I go through the hassle of submitting, the forms. But I just can't imagine not having any of that on top of transferring to a work from home life where your work is in your home. So I just think it's unfortunate. Okay, well, the last one that I think Drew and Elliott, as our resident parents, should comment on, but I also have strong feelings about, is that children and exercise was the worldwide #1 trend in 2007 and stayed there for many years, stayed in the top 5, top few for many years, but slowly lost ground, dropping to number 20 by 2020. And the past 2 years, in the pandemic years, has dropped even further, coming in at number 29 for 2022. So obviously, I think this is devastating to see, especially if we think that this is any sort of a marketing scheme here with wearable technology. That aside, to see children and exercise coming out of a trend is just sad. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Drew.
So I'm going to cast a little bit of doubt into this whole idea, because if you look at overall data would suggest that people in their 20s and 30s are having children later, right? So a typical 20-year-old is maybe, if you're, might typically have a child at 28, we might push that down the road to 32 or 33. So I'm going to argue here, again, a flaw within this data set, that perhaps, and I'm just going to suggest perhaps, this group of people that are surveyed do not have as many children as they once might have, and therefore that's going to influence how they would respond to this. Because if you don't have a child, your response to this is probably going to be different. I think.
Maybe, but their whole follow-up here, the whole thing about the survey, and I'm going to just read directly. The survey was designed to help and support the health fitness industry when making critical programming and business decisions to capture additional business into the future and maybe even stay in business after a turbulent 2 years. So, I mean, if this is going to be if this is intended to be something that leads fitness program providers into better decision making in the future, don't you think they have some sort of like fundamental duty as the College of Sports Medicine to make sure that children and exercise programs are part of that push? I mean, it's got to be in there somewhere, or else what? They're just
One,
not offered any programs?
one would think so, but I mean, I think perhaps also, I think a lot of times we think kids are all set because there are so many different programs, different sports programs that are put out there, that are offered out there. But I guess my pushback in all of this would be, how are we offering exercise options for everybody? And when I say everybody, I'm talking about the cost associated with exercise options, because when it comes to the end of the day here, all of these things cost money. And while I personally can afford some of these things, and I know a lot of families that can, there are significantly more families that can't. And what are we doing to create an equitable exercise atmosphere for children? That would be my number one concern with what's come out of this.
Well, and even those programs that are available through schools or community centers, there's costs associated with a lot of those. And people who sit in the middle, who, maybe their parents have enough money that they're not in a certain income bracket that gets free, but they don't have enough money to spend on hockey equipment or whatever it might be. Those kids get lost. I agree with you. I'm interested in knowing.
I completely disagree with Drew.
Wow.
I think it has never been more affordable to know how to and to do exercise, especially if you're poor, meaning like you don't have the means to buy a bike. You could go on your local library or find a book, and it just takes more work. The resources now, the free resources now to be able to exercise, to learn how to do a push-up, to learn how to lunge, to learn how to run outside. Like I was said in one of my Instagram rants, the Department of Transportation put roads all around where I've lived my whole life. And you can just go for a run. You can do squats. You can do push-ups. It's all on YouTube. You can go to your local library. If you don't have a local library, someone around you has a smartphone with the internet. For the longest time, they were giving out like government-funded phones that had access to the internet that can teach you all of this stuff. They're taking gym class out of schools. It's an elective. It's like they're like just removing it and just allowing you to do other stuff. Like I know a lot of people had really bad experiences in gym class, so that doesn't mean remove gym class. Maybe make gym class better instead of being like, yeah, but we all had that one experience where I felt really embarrassed during dodgeball or I couldn't climb the rope. It's like, okay, well, why don't we get hire and incentivize better gym teachers that can teach kids to climb a rope.
That's the thing, though, Elliott, is that but an 8-year-old kid isn't going to know to go to the library. Is not going to fall in love with exercise by reading about it. They're not going to find that.
Yeah, I mean I'm definitely putting the responsibility on the parents.
But didn't we just say though earlier in the call that when you don't know what to do, hiring a personal trainer, hiring a coach, hiring somebody who knows what they're doing is the best way to do it? And
yeah, and if you don't have the money for that, there's the library. So you need to take personal responsibility of going to the internet and Googling, how do I fit? How fitness.
But no, I'm jumping in, Shannon. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Because I'm going to push back on two things. Number one, right? People know that they should be eating certain foods, right? Healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, et cetera, right? But why is it that in the United States specifically, we have such a problem with obesity and eating processed foods? Because those processed foods are easily accessible and very inexpensive. And so when you have a limited amount of resources, are you going to go to the farmer's market and there's a place within a 10-mile radius of me that charges $33 for a rotisserie chicken? Like, if you have $33, are you going to buy one rotisserie chicken, or are you going to buy, 10 bags of Doritos? Like, what's going to last you longer? And I think just my point to that economic piece that I think we always have to consider is that while you're right, Elliott, everything we have now is very accessible. Maybe I should phrase it differently, is that we've got to, companies, and I say we collectively, societally, companies not only need to keep the access the same, but they've got to make an easier pathway for people that might not be willing to go to the library to find these resources. They've got to make it a little bit easier.
If you're not willing to go to the library or try to do these things and you don't want to, then that's on you. But if you truly want to get in shape, you do not need a CrossFit membership. You do not need a pair of shoes. You don't, look at these, there's kids all around the world that live in, way worse situations that do not. It's almost like you're trying to argue that we have it too convenient here in the US and that's why we're out of shape and fat.
That is the argument.
And I think is that not true?
It is true. And
so then that's not so you want to make it more convenient to make it even more convenient, but that's why you're also arguing that that's.
But I think you're taking out of it, like, so you're taking an issue that's vastly complex, and we've had this argument a number of times. You're trying to take an issue that's vastly complex when you consider in economic factors, time factors, what parents are doing in terms of working for their livelihood, working multiple jobs a day. You're eliminating all of those things and saying, if you want to do it, you can do it, which is true for you. It's true for me because that's my like mental attitude. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. But that's not necessarily true for everybody. And so I think we have to keep that complexity lens open in this issue.
So you're saying we have to bring it back to the kids. You don't have a lot of money. You're saying that you don't have the means to run down the street and not drink Gatorade?
I think data suggests that if you are economically disadvantaged, that population of people has a harder time accessing fitness, or has a higher trend of obesity than a fit lifestyle.
There are people today living on the poverty line today that are living better than rich people, quote unquote, in the 40s.
What do you mean better?
Meaning they have way more access to information. They have way more things, like they have buses, trains, they have free things. They have so many more.
But you don't see. And
they weren't overweight in the 40s.
You're not going to see a commercial for broccoli, Elliott. Like the people who are, to Drew's point, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, going in and out of a lifestyle where they don't have the time to flip their decision making on its head and do research. They're seeing ads for lean cuisines, and that's what they're going to for diet food, and it's not working out for them. I would like to bring it back to the kids thing though, because I think the problem is that if you're a good parent, maybe that's something that you're prioritizing, but not necessarily. And the person who is parenting the kid who's 6, 7, 8 years old and has the potential to fall in love with fitness and learn nutrition isn't going to learn it from them. And that parent is also not going to totally re-educate themselves. The kid is the one who's losing. And so without exercise programs that kids can access at their own, indulgence, they're just going to be following in their parents' footsteps despite the opportunity to maybe not. I mean, I just think that you're relying too much on parenting. There's nothing morally wrong with not being interested in fitness and nutrition. So there's nothing really wrong with the parent who's not doing that for their kid. But if that kid doesn't have access to programs and education that are accurate, then they're just going to be lost in the same thread that their parent is.
I just don't think making it easier or trying to make private companies make it easier for other people to I don't think that's going to solve the problem, because then we can just we're just going to keep demanding that the bar be lowered and further. And that's not actually what's going to fix it. How are you, I would probably say that I grew up with the least amount of money. Like, we had one car. My mom worked, single parent. And so we didn't have a car. So when I was 16 and 17, I had to run or walk everywhere. After school, I walked home from the bus. And then when I wanted to go to my friend's house, I had to walk however far away he lived, or if he would go pick me up. So it's like, if you don't have money, you only have time then. And so you can do push-ups. They're free. So I'm saying, yeah, it's not as fancy as CrossFit. You don't get to do Tabatas on a rower, but don't tell me that you don't have the capacity or the means to be skinny and fit and eat like raw vegetables and stuff aren't fairly expensive, especially if you're buying Oreos and Ho-Hos and Gatorade. That actually costs more.
But you have to want to do that. And not every parent wants to do that.
But wanting has nothing to do with societal or financial situation. So
yeah,
Drew's arguing that he wants to fix it by pumping money into these and making more efforts. And that's not the problem. The problem is maybe more of the societal of your parents should be showing you to exercise, or at least making you play outside. But then Drew argues that they don't necessarily have the means to do that. Right? You're saying, well, they're not fortunate enough to go and do these things, these activities.
Well,
I'm not saying people aren't fortunate enough to go outside and do these activities, but I think the more that we can make programs that get kids on bicycles, or do things like Girls on the Run, which offers an after-school program for girls to run and become strong women. I think those programs should be promoted and pushed. So you're encouraging kids at an early age to access healthy habits.
Without the barriers, financial barriers, I think is a fair recommendation as well. Because if you have a parent who's not prioritizing that, they're not going to pay the $80 a month to be a club hockey member or whatever it might be.
I think it might be a better articulation of my point than what I made earlier, but there's an accessibility issue when you can send and afford to send your kid to a hockey program every morning at 5 and pay exorbitant amount of money for your kid to do that. That's great. Get them there. If that's what they want to do, that's great. But not everybody can do that.
There are more programs now than there were 40 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
And so we are in the worst body composition of all time, right? Children are the most obese they've ever been.
I don't know the data on that, but I'm going to assume that you're correct. Yes.
Yeah, the last time I checked, childhood obesity is still trending in the wrong direction, meaning they have more and more excess adipose tissue. And so adding more programs isn't making it better. So you want to add more programs?
But why I feel like you're putting the whole add more programs. Why does it have to be more programs? Why can't it be better programming or more accessible? So we're not saying let's add more and more, but let's make it more accessible for kids to access fitness Doesn't mean we have to add 10 more programs that no one's going to utilize because they're garbage.
Same question. Are the
But it means
programs
there's
more
a
accessible now than 40 years ago
Are the programs that exist now more accessible?
and better? Yes.
Some programs are. I'm going to cite Girls on the Run again because I've seen kids utilize that and I've seen that become very successful. And I've seen that, we have at the school that I teach at, we have our after school bike program that if we didn't offer an after school bike program, some kids that take part of that program wouldn't ride their bikes. So I think by offering that, did we add an additional program? We did. We added one more program. It's more accessible. We did it. We solved the problem.
My thing isn't against the programs. It's more of like kind of the point of like, it's so convenient now and we're so privileged that people are losing sight of what is important. So they're focusing on the newest Gatorade flavor instead of just walking to their friend's house, instead of playing outside, instead of trying to find a bike that they can get. They've just lost it and they're playing video games and they're on TikTok and they're saying like, oh, well, there aren't programs for me. It's like, well, there absolutely are. And a lot of them are free. You just have to put in some work to find them or to go do them. And that's not what's happening. Right. So I'm not blaming the kids. It's just to say that the programs aren't working or they're not robust enough. I don't think is true. It's more of like the urge to go and do those programs and to seek out healthier alternatives instead. Like there's only so much marketing and advertising you can get in front of people without it being like, well, everyone knows and they're not doing it.
So maybe we can agree on this common ground. I'm not sure if this is where we're getting to here, but I would add to this argument by saying that parenting has incredible importance in getting kids active, right?
Yes.
Like the way if you model or you are, not giving your kids the option of being on screens all day, right? So sometimes I think offering programs or offering accessibility to programs is stepping in a way when parents don't have the onus to kick their own kids in the butt a little bit and say, get off your iPad or get off your phone and do something. I think it's helpful to have those options when, in my view, it's when parents aren't doing their job.
I would agree. I think the one of the biggest drivers of why both of your kids ride bikes, because they've seen you ride a bike and you ride bikes. I bet if you were really into skiing, I bet both of your kids would ski. If you were just really into running, and you ran in front of your kids. But I bet if there was a really great bike program at your school and you did nothing and you just kept dropping them off at the bike camp, they're like, Dad, I don't want to ride bikes. Like but they've grown up in a atmosphere that you've just been doing it, whether you're on a $10,000 bike or running barefoot. Right?
Running. Am I running a barefoot?
What's running barefoot? Meaning.
Oh, if I was a barefoot runner, yes.
If you're a barefoot runner, your kids are going to be running, and they don't need 10,000. Yeah. So whether you're privileged with money or not, it's what are you doing in front of your kids? Are you watching TV, telling your kids to go outside and play, or are you riding a bike and buying with your kids?
Well, I just kind of, I don't know if I agree with you that you're not doing your job as a parent if you aren't promoting certain activities. Obviously, I think that that's the right thing to do to make sure your kid is living a healthy and happy life, but that's not necessarily what all parents think, and I don't think there's anything morally incorrect with if you like video games, your kid likes video games, or baking or whatever it might be.
What if your kid likes heroin?
Well, that's probably for another episode, Elliott.
No, what you're trying to say is
I've got to eat dinner tonight. Don't get me going on the opioid crisis.
We can wrap it up soon. But what I'm saying is, like, you also are a parent. You're not a friend. So just because your kids want to do something doesn't mean that you're like, well, they like to play video games more than they like to run. It's like, okay, but like you're also responsible for your kids' health and wellness.
Yes, but if you're generationally coming from a family that eats a certain way, like think about people who have certain cuisines in the South that like that's how they eat, that's how they live, that's the way it goes. There's nothing wrong with that. So I mean, I guess I kind of agree with both of you that not to just stand right in the middle, but more so, Drew, that the accessibility of those programs is important for the kid who doesn't have access to those things at home. And that's why I think it's sad that this is not, that children in exercise is not something that's going to be a top 5, even top 20 trend, because businesses won't provide those options for kids who have parents who aren't involved. So I lean more on the side of Drew, but I hear where you're coming from, Elliott, on the parenting front. I'm not a parent myself.
We didn't have any money. I didn't get a bike until I was like 15 because I had to go play hide and seek. I just ran around.
Accessibility can mean free, but accessibility also just means that it exists, that there's a CrossFit Kids program that you can put your kid in. If they say, hey, my buddy John goes to this, I want to do that. It's not just lots.
We found tennis balls and we would throw them against the wall.
But I think ultimately, though, I mean, the bigger issue here really is like you're identifying a societal or cultural change with the advent of personal technology devices, right? Because like all we need is the outside to play. I mean, that's what it was when you talk about did we have the same programs 40 years ago? No, we didn't. But we also didn't have these stupid friggin' boxes in front of us distracting us all the time. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you want to make a better argument, let's get rid of these friggin' things.
Like your kid has a phone, your kid has a smartphone, and then you're complaining that there aren't after school programs for them to buy that give them free bikes. What? You know what I mean? Like, oh, your kid has a phone and a Twitter account, but they don't have time to exercise, or they're not, like, that's happening too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're assuming that people know how or that people have a priority list that should be a certain way, that there should be there's a right prioritization. And I don't know that I believe that's true.
Have you and Christina had the conversation yet about like when are you going to give your kid a phone? Are you going to give your kid a phone? Are you going to buy your kid a phone? Is it going to be a flip phone? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so a lot of it is based on when his peers get it, because it seems like the age is getting lower and lower. I think right now we're at like 10 or 11 or something with restrictions, and then it all depends on how he uses it. Like, it's similar to like the pacifier situation. He was allowed to have it all the time when he was an infant, and now he has it at night. And so I just take he doesn't have the means to buy a phone. So if I feel like he's improperly using the phone, unless he can go and get one, he's not going to use it.
Should we have more programs to give kids phones for free?
No,
absolutely not.
I was just being humorous.
I always say if I had a phone attached to my hip when I was 14, I would have had no friends. The amount of bridges burned, it would have just been chaos. We didn't even
get into supplements like hydroxycut, pushing the CBD, pushing the leanness. CBD.
Well, we didn't. Maybe we need
supplements.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could have another like questions episode, because I did put a poll out there for mystery questions, and I was just looking through, and we got several good ones, several interesting ones. We can't do it today.
Next, yeah.
Yeah.
Next time.
Okay.
Next time we'll start with mystery questions, and then we'll do whatever you think. But I think supplement can be good, or.
Well, why don't we talk about some of the nutrition trends and supplement trends, other things that we think could have been on this list?
Diet trends. Maybe have Jackie on.
Oh, what?
See you on the next episode. Hold on.
Yeah, wait, that sounds good.
Oh, wait. You got to do the outro. Ready? Hold on. Oh.
I didn't even get to do my big reveal.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Big reveal.
What's a big reveal, Drew?
129.
The big reveal, like all of this stuff that's in the top 10. Health and wellness coaching on-demand exercise classes, bodyweight training, high-intensity interval training, personal training, exercise for weight loss, strength training with free weights, outdoor activities, not so much, home exercise gyms, I don't know, I guess. But like 70% of the top 10 you get just by finding a fitness area, like some sort of fitness programming like Dauntless, just going there, you get all of that stuff. So,
we're clipping this. This is the only part of the episode we'll clip and put on. Thank you for the plug.
We are trending. We are absolutely trending. That's the
Perfect.
takeaway, Drew. I love it.
Outro, Shan, hit it.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to the Dauntless Academy podcast, episode number 2. It's been really fun. We got a rousing debate here at the end, and so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you liked it, don't give us a 5-star review. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more from us.
And comment your opinion.